Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rural Vermonter YouTube channel. And today we got this 2009 PT Cruiser in the shop. It's in for a brake job. They want new rear shoes and they want new front pads. No rotors or drums, just the shoes and the pads, and I'll just resurface the drums best I can. So as we do that though, I want to take a look at all the mechanics and the quality of the vehicle and see if it's actually worth all the hate this thing gets, or if people just don't like it because of the way it looks. I mean, I don't even mind the way it looks. I think it looks okay, but I know that most people understandably, have a hatred for this thing. But I want to see if that hatred is actually founded in how bad it is, or whether it's just they don't like the looks and they don't like the stereotype that comes along with this car. So let's start it up and pull it into the shop and see how bad this thing actually is. It's already making me not like it because I can't find how to roll down this window. I should just put the button right here. There it is. It's on the dash. Strike one. So I'm just going to do the brake job first, and then we'll look at everything else on the car. But doing the brakes will at least show us how rusty it is and if they did anything weird that maybe mechanically doesn't make sense. Right away, you do notice this rust bubble, but this is a 2009, and it's an Ohio vehicle originally, which is part of the Rust Belt. So honestly, this is not bad for a 13-year-old vehicle. It's also on how you maintain your cars, and this one is pretty good underneath, actually. It's got some concerning, like right here next to that shock. That's a little concerning, but floor pans and everything look good. So there's one pass for the PT Cruiser. Anyway, let's pop this wheel off here. So here's the drum. It's not in terrible shape, and she opted not to replace it. So she's actually got quite a bit of meat left on these shoes. And if you look here, this is a couple new hardware. Actually, it might all be new hardware, which is interesting, but I'm still gonna do the job because it was requested. No, the wheel cylinder is good too. And actually, wow, that looks newish too. I'll go ahead and undo this hardware here. When in doubt, use vice grips. There you go. That actually wasn't hard at all. May have just breathed in a little fluid. So I like to take off the other side and use it as a guide for reassembly on that, just to make sure everything goes back on the right spot. So I'm gonna put a little anti-seize on the wear points. Reassembly time. Before I put the drum back on this side, I'll do the other side so that I can use this one as a reference for the other side, but it's all back together. You check the operation of the cylinder right here by just peeping your screwdriver in and seeing if any fluid comes out. Careful not to damage the boot. Okay, so this wheel cylinder is bad. It's leaking fluid. She's gonna need a new wheel cylinder for sure. It's just two bolts back here, and then the brake line that we gotta remove. And there it is. So I'll pop this new one in here. Now that that's on, we can do the rest of the brakes. So let's go. So there's this one assembled now, straight down like the other one. Got it all together, but before this is gonna operate right, since I put the new wheel cylinder on, we're gonna have to bleed the system. Okay, good, hold, keep holding. Okay, stop, holding it. Okay. Gonna do the front brakes quickly. Front brakes on this car are much worse than the back ones, but she opted for no new rotors, just pads. So that's what we're gonna do, but these rotors are not in great shape. So now that the brakes are all done on this thing, let's have a closer look at it and see if it's a good vehicle for what it's supposed to be, or whether it actually deserves all the hate that it gets. So way back in 2009, when this thing was brand new, my dad was buying his first ever brand new car. He was debating between this, a 09 PT Cruiser, and an 09 Chevy Cobalt. He ended up buying the Chevy Cobalt because it was cheaper. I think he paid $10,000 because he had GM cash back. While this started at $18,000, the Chevy Cobalt started at $14,000. And the other reason was the Cobalt was manual and it got much better miles per gallon. Now looking back on that decision, in my opinion, he made the right choice because he drove that Cobalt 200,000 miles over the course of 10 years and never replaced anything on it except for the fuel lines once because of rust, because we live in Vermont, and the brakes. So original engine, original clutch, original transmission on a $10,000 car made it 200,000 miles with really no problems. This car is a 2009 and it's got 113,000 miles and it is still going strong for sure, but whether it will make it to 200,000 miles or not is still unknown. And of course that Chevy Cobalt was rated for 37 miles per gallon highway, while this is only rated for 26, I think. So 11 miles per gallon difference there, and I believe my dad would always get upwards of 40. But the Cobalt's not exactly a perfect comparison to this car because it's $14,000, this was $18,000. A more price comparable vehicle would be the Corolla of the time, which started at $17,000. Obviously, if you're just looking for reliability, fuel economy, a good economical vehicle, the Corolla would have been the better decision. But if it were me, I would have bought this PT Cruiser over a Corolla due to its uniqueness and because I do kind of like the way it looks. I'm glad that Chrysler stepped out of their comfort zone a little bit, even though a lot of people hated it. It was a cool thing to do. So the PT Cruiser underneath the hood has a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder engine. This is a meh engine. They're not super reliable, they're not super unreliable. They're just meh. So she actually is getting pretty good miles per gallon, 23.4. Let's go ahead and look at the interior, which of course 2009 American vehicles all had pretty terrible interiors due to the recession and price cutting or cost cutting. There is a lot of cheap plastic use everywhere, but Chrysler actually did a pretty good job in uniquely personalizing it in a pretty cool fashion. So that's just plastic, but you know, it's red, it looks cool. This shifter is a little retro style. The steering wheel is not my favorite. Depending on how you look at it, it's gimmicky or cool. To me, it's a touch of personality that I'm glad they put in here. I know that my dad's 09 Cobalt, the interior was just straight up black plastic. The seats weren't as comfortable as they are in this. These are actually much more comfortable seats. So yeah, some things are chintzy and cheap in here and not the best feeling, but It's actually better than recession GM era interiors, in my opinion. And I'm a GM guy. I think it's better than the Ford's interiors of this era as well. To show you an example of what I mean, we'll take a look inside an LTZ. So this is the top of the line Chevy. This is only a 2003, but the 2009 interiors of the Trailblazers really didn't change from 03 on. And while it is nice and simply laid out, it's not quite as unique or inspired as the PT Cruiser, in my opinion, interior. It's just duty and it works, and I love it. I love it. I'd rather have this than the PT Cruiser. But I'm just saying, the PT Cruiser, the designers were thinking a little bit outside of the box when they did it. All my vehicles, after I do the work on them, I take them for a test drive to make sure everything is working properly. So I'll bring you along for this test drive. It looks like a sporty-ish hatchback, but I have a feeling that it's not going to be as sporty as it looks. Yeah, that's not quick. That is really not fast. It didn't even really accelerate. I mean, there is the option for a 2.4 turbo on this, but the 2.4 regular doesn't have much. My brake job feels good though. That's good. Suspension feels good. Steering is tight on this car. But yeah, I don't think it can be classified as a sporty hatchback. Here's another sharp corner here. Let's take it at regular speeds. Yeah, I don't know. It feels pretty uninspired. It's not like they were trying to make it feel sporty at all. They were just trying to make it an economical car, which they kind of did. But for 113,000 miles, it does seem to run and shift very well. And, you know, steering is still tight. Brakes are pretty good. So we'll bring this thing back home now. It is actually quite a smooth ride. It's probably smoother than the Cobalt was. Probably a little quieter too. What's really impressing me most right now is the transmission. This thing shifts smoother than some of the brand new cars I've been in recently. It really feels like every time it shifts, you don't get any jut or you don't get any jolt. It just feels nice. Here, I'll show you. Even when you gas it, I'm not gassing it, but it's crisp. Even in my GMC Canyon, it's not nearly that crisp. So with all that said and that test drive out of the way, it's time for me to give you my verdict on this car. This is a pretty good car. I don't think it deserves all the hate that it gets. I'm not even sure where that hate stems from or why it all of a sudden became so hated, because back in the day, this was like the most popular car Chrysler had. It was flying off the lots. People loved them. They could have tried a little harder. Since it looks like a cool hatchback that you might want to whip around the corners, they could have made the suspension a little more inspired and the steering a little cooler. And the powerhouse under this hood, the 2.4 liter, is really not that strong. Leaves a lot to be desired. Mechanically, this car has held up great over the last 13 years. It's not that rusty. The only thing really wrong with it were the brakes. And I believe she's had some electrical problems with it as well. So, my verdict, it's an okay car. It doesn't deserve the hate that it gets, and I think it looks cool. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week with some more repairs and new vehicles in the shop.